Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. It's Motorcycle Wednesday here in Thomaston. They're out seeing the fall foliage, the orange, the yellow, the no longer green leaves. I'm Gavin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and today it's October 15th, 2014.
So George and I were just hanging out last week and said, hey, you want to do something this weekend? I said, yeah, what do you want to do? Well, we checked the papers and we found an installation we could go to in Atlanta. So George hopped in his car and I hopped on a plane and poof, we went to Atlanta, Georgia for Archbishop Foley's installation as the second Archbishop of the Anglican Church in North America. Now, it was supposed to go smooth, but I did not know of something called Atlanta traffic, and George got to experience it as well. I flew in at 3 o'clock for the 7 o'clock investiture, and I thought, nah, that's not too bad. I get to the rent-a-car, I put my little iPhone 6 up and put the GPS in. It says 4 hours to go 20 minutes, 20 miles. I said, Houston, there may be no live stream tonight. I was able to manage to go to the outer belt, get around to the church, and all was well. And I looked at a map of Atlanta, and there's a big circle with the outer belt, and the rest looks like a flux capacitor, you know, the little Y in the middle, and it was all red and lighting up and just flashing on the Google app. George, how was your trip from Florida?
Well, it was a lovely drive, about 6 hours north to the Atlanta suburbs, and then about 3 hours taking that inner loop through Atlanta to get from the south to the north side to the Church of the Apostles, where the investiture ceremony took place.
And took place it did. There's a lot that George and I want to talk about the investiture. First of all, obviously all the ACNA bishops were there, lots of lay people, about 1,500, 1,600 in attendance, a great live stream, thousands of people around the world watched it. But let's talk about some of the international folks that were there. Who were the archbishops that were there?
Well, there were 7 overseas archbishops. Eliud Wabukula, the Archbishop of Kenya and head of GAFCON, then Uganda's Stanley Ntagali, Egypt's Munir Anis, Nigeria's Nicholas Oko, Raja Oneshfore, Rwanda, Tito Zavala, South America, Stephen Tan Mint Oo of Burma, and then there were representatives from the Congo and Sudan and Southeast Asia representing those churches. 7 primates all told, and I hope I haven't left anybody out.
You're in a lot of trouble. If people haven't figured out after 129 episodes that journalism is more of an art form than a science, we're in to let you know that sometimes we have to occasionally, very infrequently, we have to correct our stories or add new information. Once in a blue moon, we have to say, we're sorry. Hopefully by the end of this, we don't have to say we're sorry. So let's talk more about the installation. The primates got up for the part where Archbishop Foley is installed, and they said something that I think they say all the time, but was not expected to be said at Archbishop Foley's installation, George.
Yes. Before the ceremony, we had what I call sort of the hallmark greeting card moments, where the representatives, the 7 primates, the 3 bishops, representatives of the Anglican Mission in England, read statements of congratulation and welcome. We had a letter from Barack Obama read to the congregation, something from the governor of Georgia, one of the Georgia senators, Saxby Chambliss, was present. As I said, just sort of they don't really mean much. They just are nice, ecumenical, interfaith statements, if you will, of support for a new person's ministry. We had a little bit of excitement when Greg Venables of Argentina gave a personal greeting on behalf of Pope Francis. But in the actual ceremony itself, in the context of worship, the 7 primates laid hands upon Archbishop Welby, and after praying for him and asking that the charism of archiepiscopal ministry be granted to him, they close their prayer with a welcome. We welcome you as a primate of the Anglican Communion. So by thought, word, and deed, liturgy, they have, if you will, welcomed Foley Beach as one of their own. It's not another slogan, not another statement or press release, but this is as central to the Anglican way as it gets in an affirmation of someone's ministry. There's no going back at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
ACNA is Anglican.
It's a solemn moment in the church, and obviously for Archbishop Foley. It's unique in the sense that you can't stop apostolic succession. It's here to stay, as much as the old formularies and Archbishop Justin Welby and the ACC and all the of Anglicans past would hope that this wasn't happening. The Anglican Communion is here to be alive and thrive. And they did that by acknowledging that Archbishop Foley is a member of the Anglican Communion. He serves as a primate of the Anglican Communion. And that the ACNA is, well, go ahead and say it, Anglican, despite a Irish interview given last week by Justin Welby.
There's so much that you can take away from this service if you focused on the liturgy and the worship itself. Most reporters, when they go to these things, they listen for the public statements. Mm-hmm. And as I said, they were all anodyne greetings. Barack Obama's greetings could be sent to anybody. Mm-hmm. Probably was sent to some mosque in Oklahoma City, too. It was that sort of vanilla.
Yeah.
But it's in the context of worship that we really found where we see the Anglican Church in North America going. Several points struck me. First off, you and I, Kevin, attended Bob Duncan's installation, mm-hmm. investiture as Archbishop. It's a very different church between then and now. And the improvements, I don't want to call them improvements, but the change is remarkable.
It is. I mean, this is not your father's ACNA. As we spoke about Bob Duncan's, a lot of people that were there were still there in reaction to Catherine Jefferts Schori, who was one of the catalysts that started the ACNA with the mass depositions and her theology and a lot of the inaction of the primates meeting and the inaction of Archbishop Canterbury. This is a step further. This is one where Archbishop Foley Beach, during his sermon, said, I'm calling on the church to repent and to be reconciled and to look at church a little different than the reactionary way we had in the past. And it shows a maturity that, in the ACNA that even I, as an objective reporter, found very appealing and was actually taken off guard. Somebody here gets it. You can't do any of the work of the church without starting with repentance.
Kevin, you and I could say to ourselves at Bob Duncan's installation, we wonder if this is going to work. Mm-hmm. Is this going to hold together? Are we going to see a splintering along issues of women's ordination, along theological lines? Now, after the ceremony in Atlanta, I just have a high degree of confidence that the ACNA is here to stay. There's just so many points to make. First off, ACNA is in the right time, in the right place. Mm-hmm. I've mentioned that Billy Graham will have a biography coming out in November, and we've been fortunate to see advanced copies of it and for review purposes. And, what some of the statements Graham has made is, if you would do things all over again, what would you do differently? And Graham said, if I had to do it all over again, I'd be an evangelical Anglican.
Whoa. He's an American. I think he meant Episcopal evangelical, right?
Well, I would like to think so, but I think he was thinking along the lines of J.I. Packer and John Stott.
Sure.
And the English evangelical movement of the last 30 or 40 years. Mm-hmm. And for Graham, and he went on to say he would also spend a lot less time traveling. He would have spent more time on his knees, praying with God, immersed in the Bible, and preparing for eternity with his Maker. Mm-hmm. The ACNA has stepped into a situation where people are tired of the sort of Joel Osteen happy-clappy mega churches that are basically, well, I won't criticize them, but they are what they are. They're seeking a church that is liturgically oriented, biblically oriented. Now, I can say that about the Episcopal Church, at least mine is, the prayer book churches are, but ACNA is catching a wave of those people younger people, who are coming to a faith, who are looking for something, and they're positioned very nicely from a marketing perspective. And I saw that in this ceremony because, at one point, Greg Venables, there was no criticism of Catherine Jefferts Schori, except for the representative from the AMIE and who sort of knocked the Church of England and the Episcopal Church. There was no real shooting of anybody. Mm-hmm. And instead, it was prayer-directed, God-oriented. The Episcopal Church is what it is for these people and is not competition. I mean, they're there to win souls for Jesus Christ, not to fight over who has the right to own the franchise for Episcopalians or Anglicans.
And I think that's an important part. We were there with 1,500 other Anglicans, and Catherine Jefferts Schori was not the topic. Justin Welby was not the topic. The biggest topic, 4 or 5 days out was, the Pope loves us. It was kind of that, set forth moment. But, the reality is...
but if you watch the crowd, if you watch the audience when we had those statements, if you looked in the faces of the older people who were at the Plano conference in 2003, people who went through the whole Gene Robinson and the depositions, the statement from Pope Francis, a personal greetings, hit them as, look, you guys are a real church. I'm affirming your ecclesial existence. For the younger people, gee, that's nice. But it's not really germane to our work out in the world. It's nice to be liked, but it's not something that we're seeking. And again, I'm not saying either view is right or wrong, but rather it just shows the maturity and the spiritual depth and growth that is taking place in this movement in the United States.
Yeah, we have to consider now that we're moving beyond a church started on polity and based on polity because it had a common enemy in Catherine Jefferts Schori, the fiasco with Rowan Williams as being a catalyst for how it started. It's now a church that can survive without those. The ACNA has to work for a time that in a year, and this is sad for George and I, Catherine Jefferts Schori will no longer be in office. And, Catherine Jefferts Schori, for all intents and purposes, made Anglican TV and Anglican Unscripted and Anglican Inc. And there's a point now that we actually have to go on and leave the polity behind and focus on the reconciliation of the gospel.
Kevin, we've just been hit again and again. I mean, Gene Robinson retired. Chuck Murphy left the scene. Now Catherine Jefferts Schori is standing down. What are we going to do next? I mean, we can't count on Jack Spong being around forever. No. I mean, what's left?
Yeah, and that's the reality that the ACNA has handled well. How are we going to do it, George? But, there's this reality that we saw a huge maturity at the Anglican Church of North America at this event. And, George and I don't want to say we're surprised, but, if you can make it to your second installation, I think you made it.